think 404, you got to think of something that'll go ahead and solve that. What is one of the best ways to solve something and you don't have to be involved in it? They just know and they fix it. A ninja. You're always looking for a ninja.
No, I've implemented that like 1,000 times. I know it has the feature, you know.
Yeah. I know it's got the feature, you just don't know how to implement it right. If you cannot communicate a simple idea to not only the smartest person in the room, but the least educated or the newest, greenest person in the room, if you cannot make that person and that person understand, you have to really rethink of the way that you're doing things. When it comes down to brass taxes, if you got to lay down the law, you have to lay down the law, and you have to be the mean guy to do it. And by mean, I don't mean you stupid, going at it, with all rage and stuff. But you pull them aside and you kind of, say, hey, why are you being combative? Why are you doing this? Why, what's going on here? I literally walked into a fire. So I'm like, okay, how am I gonna do this?
You ever wondered how Fortune 100 companies turn around multi-department IT divisions? Today, we're diving into the mind of Nick Cappello, the mastermind behind those transformations and the CEO of 404 Network Ninjas. Get ready to explore the cutting-edge solutions that are reshaping the tech landscapes.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Mike.
Yeah, I love having you guys on. I appreciate the time that you spend to do it. Love the name 404 Network Ninjas.
And that's part of why we named it the way that we did. 404 is the area code. But also, when something goes wrong, everybody knows 404 is a missing thing. So when you think of computer errors, you always think 404. So when you think 404, you got to think of something that'll go ahead and solve that. What is one of the best ways to solve something and you don't have to be involved in it? They just know and they fix it. A ninja. You're always looking for a ninja. So, ninjas.
That's great. I love when people give thought to their business names and they mean something. It's going to be a strange analogy, but it's like when I see people with tattoos and I'll ask them, why do you have that tattoo? Oh, it was on sale for $10 that day. Oh, why do you have this tattoo? Oh, well, that one was because I was drunk. And I have 4 tattoos. They all have meaning to me for a reason. And the only reason I put permanent ink on my body has to have a reason. And I think it's the same thing. If you're going to run a business, have it mean something to you.
It's like a tattoo. It's your brand. It's how you want to represent yourself. Let's go ahead and take a look here at the thing. My marketing coordinator, Lisa Line, designed this. Basically, you have your ninja, but take a look at the headband right here. Got the Wi-Fi symbol. So you always got to make it fun, but you got to make it personal, because personal and personable as well. It's the way that you want to represent yourself. People are not going to really remember the name all that much. Mine is memorable, but they're not going to remember that name. When you think of McDonald's, what do you think of? You think of the golden arches first.
Right.
So they're going to remember this, and it's a ninja with the network symbol on them.
The simpler the logo, the more memorable it is. I think too many people, they get all into detail in their logo. And then I say to them, you can put that on your website. It's going to be about this big. No one's going to really be able to know all that detail. Then you're going to put it on a t-shirt, a business card. Keep it simple. So
absolutely.
Let's talk about some of the things you've done. You've turned around some multi-department IT divisions in Fortune 100 companies. So what's the first step that you take when someone brings you in to revamp an IT division?
The first step that I take is make sure I've got a lot of whiskey around somewhere. So now the first thing that I do is I do my background check on the company. What do they do? Why do they do? How they do? Where do they do it? And basically, how big of a company are they really? Can't just walk in there and just be like, oh, okay, it's another computer network. It's this, it's that. If you just go by the size of the computer network and you don't care about anything else, you've already lost. So do your background check and you do your due diligence. Now, where I tend to go a little bit overboard, oh, that's way too much. To me, it's not.
Feeling overwhelmed? Drowning into deuce? It's time to reclaim your life and transform your leadership. The Decentralized A-Team Handbook gives you the strategies to build a high-performing, autonomous team. Delegate effectively. Communicate with impact. Achieve extraordinary results.
I meet with every department and I take a look just to see how they do it. I spend 20 minutes and nobody tells me, oh, go sit with Carol. She's the #1 producer. I don't want the best. I want the worst, because I need to know where the problems are, because 9 times out of 10, your worst performer is because they weren't taught right, or there's a problem in the way things are run. So I'll be able to pick out your best performer. I've been around way too long to not see who's the best. So I just go ahead and take your best and take your worst. And then once I get that, then I'd start to formulate that plan. Do we need to upgrade the servers? Do we need to upgrade the network? Do we need more education? Do we need to just tell people that they need to hit the bricks or something like that? I basically take the holistic approach, because if you take just that narrow approach, you lose the vision of what you're actually trying to do, which help that company become better. So once you get ingrained with that company, once you realize what they do and why they do it and how they do it, it's easier for you to help them design their processes. I could sit there and throw hardware at stuff all day long, and it will fix 80% of the problem. But the other 20% is the part that makes or breaks what happens to me, because that 20% is how the users react to what I'm doing. If I give them the best, computer hardware, if I give them the best servers, all that stuff, but it's the same software with the same stuff that hasn't been working for them, I failed. And I don't like to fail.
It's like people who I've done consulting for many different companies over my 40-year career. And you go into a business and they hired you to fix a problem. Harry, he's going to give you the overview. And then they proceed to try to tell you what they think the problem is. And I always think to myself, so either you're telling me that you're not competent at your job because you know the problem and you can't fix it, or you don't really know the problem. I love that approach of doing some due diligence, finding out about the company and not worrying who they tell you is their least performing person or their best performing person, because you're going to figure that out on your own. It's kind of part of the engagement. It's like doing your own due diligence makes all the difference. And it's why they hire you. These days, I do NetSuite development a lot. And I'll have people say, I think that this doesn't work because NetSuite doesn't have that feature. No, I've implemented that 1,000 times. I know it has the feature.
I know it's got the feature. You just don't know how to implement it.
I constantly have this argument with my lead developer. He'll say, they know NetSuite. They should know. And I'm like, well, the reason they hired us is because they don't know NetSuite. So let's go from there. So could you maybe share an example of some kind of innovative solution that your team has implemented recently?
Yes, there's a multinational software corporation that I did some work for, and they were in the process of merging 2 or 3 or 4 different entities into one. And they had this one incredibly large printer. It was probably about maybe $500,000, but they did a lot of banners on it. They did a lot of high production runs, you name it. Now, under the new regime, that piece of hardware would have been obsolete because there was not a way to integrate it into anything. And I couldn't believe that there was something. This thing is top of the line. It can do everything. I mean, it could probably even print another one of itself. That's how complex this thing was. So I went ahead and did a little digging into it. I called the manufacturer. I called the people. And what I did was took what they wanted to do over at this place. I'm trying to figure, how can I take this large piece of equipment that they really need and make it work? I had to go ahead and be the unpopular guy. And I had to tell these people, hey, you can't do this part and this part because this is what's going to go ahead and take this large piece of equipment out of the equation. So how do we fix this part to keep that involved in it? And it's because I had the idea to go ahead and keep this alive that they were able to keep it alive. They were able to continue with that. And they just had to give up a little bit of convenience. But they would have probably gained maybe like 20 minutes on efficiency. Whereas this way, you just readjust your thinking for a little bit and you don't lose anything on efficiency, and you don't lose a $250,000 piece of equipment. And they were just stunned by it. I said, yeah, everything has its cost. Everything has its thing. And one of the things that I don't like doing is wasting money. I could have just went ahead and said, yeah, go ahead, throw this thing away, junk it, and buy this new. But they would have added time, resources, people, because we would have had to train them on the new piece of equipment. By the time you take all of that capital of training, rebuilding the whole 9 yards, you would have lost any savings that you would have got. You win the day and you look better. Granted, there will be times where you're going to come up against people that are like, no, we've got to have it. Okay, at least I gave it a fair shot. I won't win them all, but if I can say at the end of the day, I gave it my fair shot and they said, no, go ahead and engineer it the way we want to, I can go to bed with and sleep with my head on my pillow. Okay.
Excellent. How
Yes.
important do you think communication is in successfully implementing the kind of solutions you're trying to implement on the scale that you're working with?
It is the most vital piece. I could sit there and I could deluge people with technical jibber jabber from the top to the bottom. And if they sit there and they're just like, then I've lost them. And it now becomes a thing of fear rather than this is my friend. This is my partner. This is somebody I can depend on. And it's because I can take that reams and reams of technical jibber jabber and put it in a human form that people actually, oh, now I get it. Now I understand. This is why we need to do this. This is why we need to change. And then sometimes by putting it in a human form, they'll catch stuff that I didn't catch, or they'll catch something that's, oh, wait, we can't do this because blah, blah, blah. Or really, we can do this? Hey, can we also blah, 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 blah. If you just go at it with the tech terms, then they'll never grow. And it's only when they grow that you become not only indispensable with the company, you become their leader, quote unquote. You become the guy that's going to carry the banner and say, I'm going to fight for the user. I'm like, I'm trying at the time. I got the disc. I'll fight for the users each and every time. Because once you have the users behind you, management behind you, and the owners behind you, you've done a good job that day.
How important do you think to a leader communication is?
It is the most important thing. If you cannot communicate a simple idea to not only the smartest person in the room, but the least educated or the newest, greenest person in the room, if you cannot make that person and that person understand, you have to really rethink the way that you're doing things, because it's only when everybody is on the same page or as close to the same page as possible that you can do the job and do it successfully.
Yeah, that's so true. And I want to double back to when you were talking about being their leader or being like the worst nightmare situation. One of the things I teach my tech executives is they have to understand the cultural diversity within their teams, because these days teams are global. People working remotely everywhere. One of the things I suggest they do is on their monthly meetings or even weekly meetings, have a question that they get to know something about the employee, and each employee goes around and answers the question. And then of course they're encouraged to progressively make those questions a little more intrusive, right? So after one of the clients after 6 weeks said, this question thing isn't working. What do you mean it's not working? He goes, they give me super short answers and they say it makes them uncomfortable. And I said, hold on a second. Are you forcing them to answer the question? And he said, of course, you said it was part of the agenda and we got to cover everything on the agenda. Now, if you have somebody do that every week, you're going to need to have a conversation with them about, hey, the purpose of this is everyone wants to get to know everyone else. But once in a while, they don't want to talk about something. It brings up a trauma from the past or whatever. And you don't want to be their worst enemy. You're going to find out, oh, I have meetings on Wednesdays and suddenly half my staff is out sick every Wednesday because they don't want to answer the question.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everybody used to kid. They said that I was the meanest, kindest person they've ever ran into. Because you sit there and you treat everybody the way you want to treat. And you just treat them kindness, respect, and all that. But when it comes down to brass taxes, if you got to lay down the law, you have to be the mean guy to do it. And by mean, I don't mean with all the, rage, but you pull them aside and you say, hey, why are you being combative? Why are you doing this? What's going on here? Is there something that I'm doing wrong? Is there something blah, blah, blah? And when they said I'm being mean, it's because I'm forcing them to confront their own selves and their own demons and stuff like that. Now, in some cases, I quote unquote crossed the line, but I didn't know that I crossed the line because there was no indication that there was even a line. I learned as much from criticizing a fellow worker and criticizing in the loosest form, not as in or anything like that, talking to them, trying to figure out. I learned just as much as they learned from me. So this way, if I know each and every person on my team and I can get along with as many people as possible, don't get me wrong, you're never going to get everybody on your side. But as long as you can get 98 to 99% of those people to like you, you're doing a good job. And because we're all learning about each other, We know that we're going to make mistakes. We're going to screw up. But no matter what, I'm going to have your back, or John's going to have my back, or Tim's going to have this person's back. We know for a fact we'll sit there and come up with the best solution possible. But we have fun doing it, number one. And we know for a fact that if we don't know an answer, we can feel free to go to anybody in the team and go, hey, basic question you probably should have known the minute that you walked in the door 20 years ago. And you just can't remember it. We'll sit there, we'll laugh for a couple of seconds. Let's one-on-one type of days here, but blah, 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 blah. But getting back to your point, no, you got to really know not only tech environment as far as like from what needs to go where, when, how, and why. You need to know your environment as a whole, where you're sitting, who you're sitting with, and who you can depend on and who can depend on.
So what's the most bizarre or unexpected challenge that you've encountered? Well,
so there's a place in Kentucky. I go in the door and the last guy left and he just pissed off that he had to leave. So what he did was he basically took a flamethrower to the place pretty much and burned all the Cat 5 and stuff like that, all the connecting wires and stuff. The guy was arrested for tampering with a lot of stuff and ruining destruction of things. But I literally walked into a fire. So I'm like, okay, yeah, how am I going to do this? Because when they asked me to come and take a look and say, hey, is there anything you can do? We had somebody leave and he left it. Their quote was, he left it in a shambles. They neglected to say that it looked like the inside of a barbecue pit. I thought it was funny because as I'm walking toward the server room, I'm not hearing a thing. And servers, they sit there, they scream. That's what they do for a living. And I'm like, okay. So I open it up and I take a look. Part it's black, part it's this. They got little emergency lights hanging from the ceiling. And I'm like, okay, where's your guys' backup set? and they said, the good thing is we have a backup from 2 weeks ago. I said, okay. I said, everybody's got the rest of the week off. I said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get fire prevention and fire cleanup team. We're going to clean this room up. We're going to get all new air conditioning, we're going to get all new computers, all new everything. Literally, I had to rebuild something from the edge. So therefore, we dubbed the new server room PHX Phoenix 1. And everything that was in there was all Phoenix related to it because we had to rise from the ashes. And of course, just because I am the way that I am, and we are in one of the best places for it, what did I do? I bought smoked barbecue for everybody.
That's like the funny exclamation point on the end of that story.
It was great. Everybody was on pins and needles because this was their livelihood. And this was the way that they had to do stuff. And they didn't think that I could do it in the time period allotted. I'm like, I said, give me a couple of your hands, because I just brought 2 or 3 people because I literally didn't know what I was facing. I had a couple of people from their company, since they were down anyway and they weren't going to be able to work. They pitched in and stuff like that. And we got everything done one day ahead of schedule. I'm actually shocked because I'm sitting there going, oh God, we're going to be another week just to get the smoking stuff out. But these guys that I found, and you're going to laugh the way I found them. I found them as I was sitting in a bar with my buddies, and they're like, oh, that was the place over here on such and such. I said, yeah. He goes, we do smoke remediation and stuff like that. I'm like, okay. That we got these guys, and they were fantastic. They got the job done quicker than we could think about. I forget what it cost the company, but it wasn't as extravagant as I thought it was going to be. And just by everybody pulling in together, it was my biggest thing that I've got is community. I tend to like to build communities around everything, and I like to involve the people. So let's say you needed a new account, and I knew the account. Hey, I've got this guy. Because you trust me, you'll take my recommendation, you'll take it, and you'll take it good. Therefore, I've done a good thing for him, and I've done a good thing for you. So we build that community. And that, to me, is the most important part of why I do what I do. That's great. That's my job. But building a community is my passion. Helping people help each other and helping leave the world just a little bit better than when I came into it, that's my responsibility.
That's awesome. If you could bring back any obsolete piece of technology and make it cutting edge again, which one would you choose and how would you modernize it?
If I could bring back a piece of technology and make it modern, I would have to say the multiple tape drives that we use for backups. If we could have those tape drives and just load them up with SSD drives and just be able to take one and rotate it out on a daily basis and just have the jukebox there, I would love that. That would be the absolute ultimate thing. But if we could have something that could read and write at the speed of an SSD and have the durability of tape, but also something that I could go ahead and just take and remove off premise easy. Oh God, that would be, oh yeah. Look, I'm drooling right now thinking of this.
Yeah, I almost thought you were going to say when you asked them where their backups were, they were going to say they didn't have any.
No, they were lucky because I think somebody in the company saw, they were reading the tea leaves and they were seeing that this guy wasn't going to go well. So they just went ahead and insisted that they did the offsite backup. If I remember right. But yeah, I remember those tape jukeboxes, and they were the worst to initialize because you had to sit there and wait 6 hours for the whole damn magazine to initialize.
Right.
And if one of the tapes didn't work, you had to take out the entire magazine, put in a whole new magazine, over again. But still, those things are great because you could just go ahead and snatch one out and throw it in a safe and you're good.
I think if you had to explain your job to a 5-year-old using only food analogies, how would you describe what you do?
Okay. All right, buddy boy, here we go. So, you know how there are burgers here, right? And you like hamburgers, right? So you got the bun, you got the lettuce, you got the pickles, you got the onions, and you got the burger itself, then you got the bottom part of the bun. Okay? What if you decided one day that you didn't like the way that hamburger looked and that hamburger tasted, or the way that you put that hamburger together? You would come to me and you would say, hey, Nick, how can I make this hamburger better? And I'd ask you, how do you want this burger to look and taste? Then you tell me, oh, I want chocolate on it. Oh, I want this. I want that. I want this. And you know what? I'm going to try many different things, and I'm going to make that burger just the way you want me to. And if I can't make it, I'm going to tell you why I can't make a part of it the way that you want. And hopefully you'll understand, and hopefully you'll like. Sometimes you're just going to have to go a little bit on faith here, but trust me, have a bite. If you don't like it, I'll figure something else out.
You handled that question like a pro.
I've got 3 nieces and a nephew, so I've had to put a lot of things in very small terms.
You handled it like a pro. A lot of times I like to have unusual questions in my pocket to ask. And a lot of times people, 9 times out of 10, they'll say, that's a great question. They're trying to figure out what to answer. And then they'll stammer a little bit and then they'll answer. But no, that was, you went right to the point. I've really enjoyed speaking with you. Why don't you let the audience know where they can connect with you if they want to find out more about you?
Sure. You could go ahead and take a look on LinkedIn. You could take a look on X. You can take a look on the websites. Where it is you're looking for 404ninjas.com or just 404 Ninjas, either one. Of course, the website, everything else, 404 Ninjas. Make sure you look for the little guy. Anybody else that has this, they're not a ninja.
Thanks again for spending the time with me today. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, no problem. It was a really good talk. And I enjoyed this talk.
Everybody, thanks again for being here. New episodes of Gaining the Technology Leadership Edge every Wednesday, 8 a.m. Pacific time. Hope to see you here again next week.